adult cartoon following the adventures of a sociopathic old man and his reluctant companion of a grandson has managed to get as deep as any English class, and I can prove it. Despite largely being a comedy, Rick and Morty does make an effort to include genuinely good writing in its storytelling, something that makes me appreciate the show more than I had initially expected to. Sometimes certain episodes can even carry through lines of a thematic nature that work to encapsulate the broader message imbued into the ongoing story. One such thematic through line is the idea of a desire not to exist, whether it be due to the apparent meaningless nature of the universe or the unrelenting pain that accompanies being a part of it, and the intrinsic value of perseverance through living regardless. Between crazed blue creatures, the most disturbing spaghetti recipe, and infinite dead wives, Rick and Morty provides a startlingly deep look into the existential dread that many people grapple with at some point in their lives. Let's return to the conspiracy board, this time to unravel some of the most impactful thematic material found in what is otherwise a comedy. Despite the fact that Rick oftentimes refuses to take it seriously,
It's like a Netflix drama down here, and I don't mean an accidentally good one.
Rick and Morty does have a very intriguing canon and lore that serves as a backbone to the ongoing story and episodic adventures, something that fans of the show enjoy analyzing. Previously, I made a video going over the broad strokes of this overarching story, grounded through dissecting the psychology of Rick and evil Morty, so if you want my elaborated thoughts on such things, feel free to go watch that. As for this video, we are going to focus on a theme that is heavily present throughout some of the most important episodes: the idea of the purpose of life, the fear of meaninglessness, and the complicated nature of the desire to die, connecting them all to both the grander narrative of the show and our own reality as well. One of the first and most in-your-face examples of such themes comes in the form of Mr. Meeks, an iconic character that appeared in the first season. These blue creatures can be spawned into reality and then exist to serve a singular purpose: complete a task that's given to them. Upon completing said task, they will then cease to exist. These things are exceedingly motivated to complete the task that is given to them due to the fact that existence itself causes them immense pain, and they can only effectively die upon completing the assignment given at their creation. This serves as a classic Rick and Morty formula for an episode, an inherently dark concept that creates comedic scenarios. In the episode that stars the Meeks, Jerry, in all of his incompetence, presents them with a task that remains impossible for an extended length of time: improving his golfing capabilities. It's here that we see how quickly existing itself takes its toll on a Meeks. Apparently, only a couple of days feels like an eternity for them, and their physical makeup as well as mental state rapidly deteriorates. Upon rewatching this episode, I noticed how this concept parallels Rick's story, and even got to thinking how it reflects certain things that people in the real world struggle with as well. What I want to talk about is best displayed through dialogue that Mr. Meeks says throughout the episode. "I have to fulfill my purpose so I can go away. Meeks are not born into this world fumbling for meaning. We are created to serve a singular purpose to which we go to any length to fulfill."
Existence is pain!
Each of these work into the larger story at play. First of all, I think the whole concept of a Mr. Meeks and their life cycle parallels, to a certain extent, the current story of Rick. As we learn throughout the show, the timeline of which is talked about in my prior video, Rick has been on a lifelong quest of revenge ever since his wife was killed across infinity by Rick Prime. When events surrounding this aspect of the canon occur, Rick is often seen as more reckless than usual, behaving more carelessly towards his life. This isn't necessarily a rare occurrence for Rick either. In many different episodes, he is seen as going to dangerous lengths only to attain some kind of fleeting gratification, and through glimpses of his past, we can see just how depressed he has understandably been throughout the decades. Between this and his relapse into obsessive hunting down for Rick Prime towards the end of Season 6, in a sense, Mr. Meeseeks embodies what Rick had become and what the show seems to now be directing towards letting him recover from. A being whose will to live is tied to a purpose or goal that must be fulfilled, lest there be a constant, all consuming pain within them. Now, obviously, Rick succeeding in killing his arch nemesis didn't exactly make him feel any more fulfilled due to the true cause of his pain, but that's a different topic. Even if not directly intentional, I do see this whole Mr. Meeseeks episode as a sort of foreshadowing to Rick's condition that we don't get clear answers on for many more episodes to come afterwards. Furthermore, I see Mr. Meeseeks as an entity, as encapsulating one of the oldest struggles that has faced humanity across the eons: the struggle for purpose and the desire to fulfill said purpose before leaving this life. I'm sure you can easily think of various examples in media, history, and perhaps people you know that have grappled with this fascinating obsession. With death present as an ever looming inevitability for everyone, the idea of departing from this earth is a near constant drone in the back of one's mind, even if not intentionally so. This commonly causes people to feel as though they need to leave some kind of lasting effect, some sort of mark of their existence, which often comes in the form of reproducing to carry on a family legacy.
How did you even rope me into this? Cause he roped me into this. Well, him over there, he roped me into this. Well, he roped me into this. Well, what about me? He roped me into this. Well, that one over there roped me into this. Well, he roped me into this.
But some people have harder goals to attain, causing them to feel unsettled if never achieved. Just think of all the starving artists out there. In a way, this puts a lot of humanity in the same boat as a Meeseeks, consumed with the desire to fulfill some kind of purpose before death. Now, among the many other alien attributes of this creature, one of the main differences for a Meeseeks is that they actively want to die, due to existing itself being the source of their pain. This is where the concept delves into the indifferent cruelty of the universe that many experience in some capacity. It can often seem like reality exists to perpetuate its own suffering, ending only in the bleak promise of death. However, despite these themes, this isn't the overall message the show is ultimately communicating. Introduced in a much later season was the deliciously dark concept of spaghetti that is collected from the remains of living individuals who have purposely chosen to exit this world. The episode delves into the incredibly bleak moral practice of encouraging this method of spaghetti creation, simply because it is exceptionally delicious and sells well, and features a whole different topic of ruthless consumerism and the sacrifice of functioning society for perceived profit. The plot ultimately concludes with the people becoming disgusted with the concept of consuming spaghetti from the remains of fellow human beings due to one major truth: the inherent complexity of life. After witnessing the life story of who was, for all intents and purposes, simply a random person at the end of a decently long life, it was made clear just how much transpires to a person. There are so many times of joy and misery, good and bad decisions, a blend of everything. This is what triggers the downfall of the spaghetti industry, as people become disgusted at what they are consuming. It undoubtedly feels repulsive and reductive to simply consume what is essentially the bodily remains of a being that is so complicated, both relatable and unique in their myriad of experiences. So why does all this relate to Mr. Meeseeks and the character arc of Rick? It highlights something very important about life. Existence itself contains a certain kind of beauty, even amongst its, at times, hopeless nature. In Rick and Morty, the feeling of meaninglessness is enhanced by the exploration of an infinite multiverse, where every combination of anything transpires. But the fact of the matter is, it is irrelevant if one's existence does not have any effect on the grander scheme of infinity, because at the end of the day, they were a sentient being, experiencing thoughts and emotions. Life is inherently filled with value, due to the fact that it exists at all, something that is displayed through the spaghetti episode, and is something that Rick is displayed as sort of relearning throughout the series, after adopting a very nihilistic outlook in the wake of his original family's death. I think one of the best examples of this comes from an episode that elaborates on the history of Rick and Birdman, who have been established as friends in the show multiple times. Following a triumphant victory in a war that a younger Rick helped Birdman fight in, a particularly on-topic exchange occurs between them.
Dude, I share this with almost nobody, but I could take you right now to this same battlefield in a universe where we lost, or another where we won, or another where the war never even happened. All equally real, all equally unreal. None of it matters.
Rick offers to include Birdman on his travel of the multiverse, boasting about how they could keep doing anything they wanted forever, since nothing truly matters in the grand scheme of infinity. This creates a bit of tension in Birdman at the notion that nothing matters, given that he just finished fighting for a cause that clearly mattered very much to his entire world. In response to this, Rick asserts something that we rarely hear him admit. Birdman specifically matters to him, which is why he helped at all. This is once again hammered home when Rick does his best to save this Birdman specifically, rather than finding a replacement out in the multiverse. This delves into universe-specific entities and the unique emotional attachment to them that Rick forms, but that's something I covered in my previous video on the series, so once again, check it out for more elaboration on that portion. What this interaction highlights is the different existential perspectives displayed between this Rick and Birdman. Rick implies that nothing matters due to everything in infinity being equally real and equally unreal, while Birdman clearly retains a position of the events surrounding him indeed being of value. Despite the fact that infinity exists out there, that doesn't nullify the magnitude of individual experience. Birdman's plight may play out a countless number of times in a countless number of ways, but this iteration matters because it is intrinsically tied to his life and the lives of those surrounding him. I think the idea is that meaning is not to be weighed against an infinite vastness, but to the value of individual consciousness. The three parts of the Rick and Morty lore discussed today, Mr. Meeseeks, Spaghetti, and the Infinite Multiverse, each highlight a dark outlook on reality. Purpose is unclear and difficult to attain. It all inevitably ends in death, and every living being is incomprehensibly small in comparison to the vastness of the cosmos. However, through the nuances displayed within these, the show communicates its most impactful lesson. Life itself, the capability for a being to think and feel, is what gives inherent value to existence as a concept. This philosophical outlook discredits the idea that nothing matters, instead reinforcing the exact opposite, the truth that everything does, solely due to the fact that we are here to experience reality. That brings us to the end of this narrative investigation. If you enjoy this type of content and wish to support the channel further, in addition to the free but incredibly valuable actions such as liking and subscribing, you could consider becoming a member of the Lore Hunter tier for only $4 to gain access to audiobook content of my original writing. Or, if you prefer reading, find my digital and paperback novels on Amazon. Thank you to my channel members for being top investigators of Playmaster Plus, currently consisting of Night Rain, Casualty, and Joe Reed. I've been your private detective into the world of stories, the man behind the hat. And until next time, the unknown persists, so the investigation continues.
God, what was the point?
If you're asking whether this was a story about right and wrong, the answer is, I don't care.